Adam, this week I'll tell you what grinds my gears, and it's very simple, my man. A lack of creativity. Don't give me yesterday's news and tell me that it's news again. It's not breaking, it's not relevant. I've seen it before. This ain't Nick at Night. I don't want any reruns. Hi, WrestleMania. And with that, we welcome you back to Fourth and Pain, the only pro wrestling show to be hosted by an NFL player and me, the weight loss champion, Redskins defensive end Adam Carricker, everybody.
Howdy.
Howdy. I'm former wrestling announcer, weight loss champion Chuck Carroll. This here, Fourth and Pain. Be sure to like us on Facebook and check us out online, fourthandpain.com. New shows each and every weekday, high noon Eastern. Adam, those shows, low calorie, high energy.
And daggone it, we're really good at what we do.
And daggone it, I'm going to break radio professionalism and say, you're eating a little something right now. What are you noshing on, my man?
I'm not eating anything. I'm just sitting here talking and, just spreading my usual words of wisdom with everybody.
I thought you were eating a sandwich. I could be wrong. But anyway, lots to talk about this segment. I want to go back. Many thanks to Dave Scherer, by the way, for joining us last couple of minutes talking about WWE WrestleMania. Adam, there's more that I want to talk about one-on-one with you, but let's start. Your quarterback, Robert Griffin III, tweeted out something very interesting earlier this week, and I'm going to read this to you verbatim. I know that you've been off and maybe you haven't had a chance to see these yet. He says, I feel like I need to say this. Although my goal is to start week 1, that doesn't mean I will compromise my career to do so. Starting week 1 will be the result of healing, hard work, dedication, and God's anointing. No rush, just determination. And so when you hear something like that from your quarterback and you say, wow, he's really looking at this thing long term, as a teammate, as a guy that has a locker next to his, what do you take away from that statement?
Well, I like it. And I like it because we need this guy long term. We need him around for years to come. If he comes back a little too soon and tweaks it again, then who knows what could happen with his career. So he needs to be ready. He needs to be full force when he comes back. And I feel 100% comfortable saying that because we have this guy on our team named Kirk Cousins. Kirk can easily come in and start game 1 if Robert's not ready, and there's going to be little to no drop-off. Look at what he did last year, the game-winning drive against the Ravens and how he played leading us to a victory against the Browns up in Cleveland. I have full confidence in Kirk. Obviously, the preference would be to have Robert back and ready for game 1 because he is our starter, but if he's not, hey, man, take care of yourself, get yourself ready because we need you long-term.
And, it was kind of refreshing to hear that. But up until this point, here's kind of why this was a big deal this week, is because up until this point, you've heard nothing but he's on pace to hit week 1. He should be under center week 1. The goal is for him to play week 1. He's meeting that goal, if not ahead of it. And I'm kind of scratching my head. Now, granted, Adam, I don't know athletic training from Eve or Adam for that matter, but the fact of the matter is even the layman can tell you something doesn't sound right in February, how you're saying how somebody's going to be in September. I don't think that it works like that. And so for him to come out with this dose of reality, I call that kind of refreshing.
Well, I think it's the optimal outlook. I think it's the positive outlook. And anybody who knows Robert knows he's going to work hard, knows he's probably going to come back faster than most guys would just because of his work ethic and dedication. But I feel comfortable saying what I'm saying because we have Kirk Cousins because we have full confidence in Kirk to come in and play well if we need him to.
Right, and let's not forget Kirk Cousins, the week that he started against the Cleveland Browns, his one and only start, guided your team to victory without a doubt and won the Fourth and Pain championship. Definitely more than capable under center. And here's the other thing that you need to keep in mind there. Unlike last offseason, because Robert is injured, Kirk will be taking all the snaps with the first team during OTAs, during mini camps, during all of your all of your offseason activities, meaning that he's going to be ready to go when the regular season rolls around if Robert is unable to do so.
Well, what I keep hearing is, look at what Adrian Peterson did. Look how fast he came back and how effective he was. And sure, Robert can duplicate that. I have no doubts. But at the same time, that is not normal. Adrian Peterson is the rare exception, and Robert could also be the rare exception. We'll find out. But you look at a guy like Derrick Rose, who got hurt about a year ago, and he has come out and said he could miss this entire season if he's not ready and healthy to go. So guys' recoveries vary. Adrian Peterson came back in 7 months, and he had one of the greatest running back seasons that a running back's ever had. And Derrick Rose, it could take him a year or more to come back. So it's going to vary. So I just want Robert to come back healthy, and Kirk, be ready.
And I'm glad that you actually brought up Derrick Rose, because the other part of this equation, Adam, is if you recall, Derrick Rose put out that television commercial saying that he was ready to come back, he was going to be healthy, he was going to have a hell of a season, and we're yet to see him on the court. Well, also this week, in conjunction with those tweets, Robert unleashes a television campaign, an advertising campaign through Adidas, with the slug all in for week 1. Is that like the Sports Illustrated cover curse? Did he just doom himself there, or is this more media hype BS?
You're talking to a guy who doesn't believe in fate. My wife believes in, I don't believe in any of that crap. You make your own destiny. He didn't jinx himself. I don't believe in jinxes. I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in any of that stuff. He did not jinx himself whatsoever.
All right, so we will find out many off seasons to go, much of the off season still to go. The Washington Redskins, all eyes on Robert Griffin III. But Adam, as I said at the top of the segment here on Fourth and Pain, I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about WrestleMania, more on what we did with Dave Scherer in the last segment. Lots of questions still to be answered is with regards to WrestleMania. See, now here's my question. We were wondering who CM Punk would face if The Undertaker was unable to go. But the question that we didn't get a chance to ask Dave was, what would happen if The Undertaker is unable to wrestle? Should he come back? Should it be the end of the career? What would happen, Adam, in your eyes, if The Undertaker was unable to wrestle this year at WrestleMania?
To me, he has to wrestle or the streak is over. I understand it's not a loss if he doesn't wrestle, but it's 20 straight years with a victory. And to me, the mystique is, it's not gone, it's not lost, but it is extremely diminished if he does not wrestle. If he comes back next year and wrestles and loses, it's not the same as if he did it this year. He wouldn't put the guy over, whoever beat him, as big as he would if he did it this year versus next year, or if he comes back and wins, because there's that gap in there. To me, it's like Cal Ripken. Cal Ripken played in like 2,000 and a billion straight games. He never missed a game. To me, that's the streak. And The Undertaker is The Undertaker. You can never damage his legacy. But to me, the streak and the mystique that surrounds him at WrestleMania would severely be diminished if he does not come out and is not able to wrestle this year and continue his WrestleMania streak.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, if he comes back, if he's unable to go this year and he comes back at WrestleMania 30, which they announced this past week was going to be in New Orleans, home of this year's Super Bowl, coincidentally, don't you find it ironic that this year's WrestleMania is at the Meadowlands and next year's WrestleMania is at the Superdome, and this year's Super Bowl was at the Superdome and next year's Super Bowl is at the Meadowlands?
I noticed that, but this is the pro wrestling Super Bowl, so you can't have the two Super Bowls in the same spot in the same year, so they got to alternate. So but I did notice that as well.
It's like two ships passing in the night, the two greatest sports in America right now. But anyway, back to WrestleMania. The thing is, if he does not wrestle this year, The Undertaker, I really believe wholeheartedly if he comes back in New Orleans, regardless of whether or not he wins, there will be that asterisk by that match because he would have taken that year off. But my question, and it kind of begs the bigger question though. Does he really need one last match at this point? Because the mystique is there, the legend is there, that undefeated streak at WrestleMania is there, and it's at a very round number, 20-0. Does he really need one more match? Do the fans need that closure to hold The Undertaker in that level of prestige, the WWE Hall of Fame that we all know is coming? Does he need that one more match?
No, not at all. He doesn't need to do that. But as you once told me, and apparently this is a unwritten rule in wrestling. It's like you have to lose your last match, otherwise fans just keep wanting more and more and more. Shawn Michaels loses his last match to The Undertaker. Mick Foley is retired by Triple H. Shawn Michaels retires Ric Flair. So to me, I would be surprised if he didn't wrestle this year and lose, and that's his final match, because apparently that's the unwritten rule of professional wrestling that you told me about a year ago. I don't know if you remember this conversation. If he ended it now, I'd be good with that. But everyone would clamor for one more. So I would be surprised if he doesn't wrestle and he ends up losing to whoever he wrestles.
Well, we did have that conversation, and I didn't think to bring that up today. But now that you have, could you envision a scenario where he doesn't return to wrestle at WrestleMania, but perhaps at another pay-per-view where he does lose that final match? Would that cheapen his legacy?
No, it wouldn't cheapen his legacy at all. It wouldn't cheapen it if he never wrestled again. It wouldn't cheapen it if he wrestled and lost, or if it was in another pay-per-view. I think if he came out and said at Extreme Rules, which is the following pay-per-view after WrestleMania, if he said, this is my last match, I wasn't able to get ready for WrestleMania, and he lost, I think fans would be okay with that. And I think it would be the greatest streak in pro wrestling history, and I don't think it would ever be touched by anybody at any other point in time. But I think fans would be okay with that. From what you've told me, pro wrestling unwritten rules are that he has to lose, and it would have to be at WrestleMania, put a young guy over the top, and that's how his career should end, according to these rules.
100% true, but I also think that if he's unable to go at WrestleMania this year, the odds of him returning in time for Extreme Rules are slim to none. I think that if he were to have one final match, they would put it on their second biggest pay-per-view of the year, and that would be SummerSlam, and that would certainly garner quite a few pay-per-views.
Oh, I completely agree. I just pulled a pay-per-view off the top of my head. Yeah, I actually like what you said better. SummerSlam would be much better. I think if he misses this year's WrestleMania, I don't think he should even wrestle in next year's WrestleMania, because I think it would actually damage the mystique of the streak. I like what you say better. If he can't do it at this year's WrestleMania, he does it at SummerSlam, and that's how his career ends. I like that. I think that would be the best way to go if he can't go at this year's WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think it's the best of both worlds. You keep that streak intact, and you do the honorable thing, and you job out in your final match. But, Adam, we are in the home stretch of Fourth and Pain. Fourth down still to go. We're going to come back on the other side. We're going to talk about Clowney from South Carolina. Should he play next year? And the bigger question then, the eligibility rules for college players entering the National Football League. Should they be loosened? Should they be stricter? How do they factor into pro sports in general? We're going to be talking about that on the flip side. Don't you go anywhere. This here is Fourth and Pain.